afternoon. Have you ever made a decision within your business where you found yourself, maybe not even purposefully, factoring in considerations other than financial return on investment? Perhaps there was value there that you just couldn't quite quantify, or you found yourself sort of listening to your gut, or maybe you're just trying to figure out how to do the right thing. My name is Jamie Loucks. I'm with MWH, and I'm here to talk with you on behalf of John Wu and his team at Detroit Diesel about a story about Detroit Diesel, an engine manufacturing company who was faced with just that type of decision. So let's go back in time just a little bit to the early 2000s. Let's say 2002 to 2004. Do you remember where you were living? Maybe what you were doing for a living or what you were studying? No matter where you were or what you were doing, you probably remember it was a little bit of a tough time, especially in the US. We had recently been devastated by the activities on 9/11. The promise of the dot-com bubble had recently burst, and a lot of companies were really struggling to stay open. In the city of Detroit, Michigan, they were hit especially hard. Not only were they suffering from the same issues that the rest of the economy were facing, they are also reeling from the downturn of the US auto industry. So what was once the vibrant, bustling motor city had turned into nearly a ghost town because businesses just couldn't make ends meet and were having to shut their door and move elsewhere. Now, I mentioned that this is a story about Detroit Diesel. Detroit Diesel is a company that is based in Detroit. They actually have a facility that's 130 acres under one roof. Just to give you some perspective, 130 acres is about 120 football fields. So this is an enormous facility. And at one time, the facility was fully packed with production, fully utilized. But in the early 2000s, it sat largely dormant because they just didn't have the business to fill it. So the early 2000s actually marked a very important decision for Detroit Diesel, or timing for an important decision. Engine companies and the engines themselves go through an engine design life. So after about 20 or 25 years for a particular product, they have to look at redesigning. And this is not only to sort of update it, but also to factor in changes in emissions standards, et cetera. So early 2000s, Detroit Diesel was looking at the end of a design life for their bread and butter product called the Series 60. This was the main contributor of revenue for their company. And as they started to consider this, they thought about some of the other things that go into an engine redesign. They have to retool, reconfigure the production line. They have to purchase any sort of relevant equipment. And then they started looking at their facility. It was built in the early part of the 20th century. It was old. It was outdated. Like I mentioned, it sat largely unused. It was incredibly inefficient as far as energy use. It was dismal. People didn't really like working or being in it. And it was questionably safe or unsafe. There were still a lot of chemicals and hazardous materials that had been there for decades. So they were looking at this redesign and what they would have to put into their current facility to make it viable. And they realized that they really had a key decision on their plate. Do they stay in Detroit and with this current facility, or do they close the doors like so many other businesses in Detroit, and do they move elsewhere? Perhaps somewhere else in the United States, maybe Mexico, maybe overseas, somewhere where they could have a state-of-the-art, brand new, shiny facility and access to less expensive labor, materials, and supplies. So they looked at their current situation, they thought about the potential, and they said, what makes more business sense? What would you do faced with the same decision? So I'm happy to say that Detroit Diesel decided to stay put. So they remained in Detroit, which kept 2,400 to 2,900 jobs in the city of Detroit. They also decided to help make Detroit a better place and helped with updating some of the local infrastructure. They looked inward to their facility and they embarked on an enormous effort to renovate and update the facility, which included energy efficiency improvements to their electricity, their heating and cooling system, ended up saving them $1.6 to $3 million every year. They removed some of the hazardous chemicals and materials that had been in their facility, and they just improved it in general to create a much more viable production facility going forward. They didn't stop there. They've reached outward now with their successes to the industry, And they've been working with Energy Star, which has been traditionally recognized in the office buildings, residence, appliance sectors, and they're helping to develop a program specific to engine manufacturers. They've also embarked on a journey towards LEED certification under the U.S. Green Building Council. So they're looking at certifying their facility under LEED for existing buildings, operations, and maintenance. And if they do, they could be the first engine manufacturer to have such a certified building. So 2,400 jobs at a minimum, local community improvements, a safer facility, up to $3 million per year, supply chain efficiencies. Oh, that's actually, I forgot to mention that. That's worth going back to. So they had this huge facility which still remained largely unused. So what they did is they invited other companies from within their industry to be tenants in their facility and to share this space. So not only did that provide a source of income for them for this space that was previously unproductive, it also created a sort of a hub where these companies could interact and share goods and services without worrying about the logistics or transportation costs that would normally ensue. So very, very sustainable supply chain sort of innovation. So what I'd like to show you now is I have a brief video that really kind of highlights the massive effort that they had to undertake to update their facility. So, you know, it was not a simple decision for them to stay in Detroit. It cost a lot of money, a very, very complicated plan, and I just wanted to give you a sort of little spotlight into some of the efforts that they actually committed to when they made this decision.
With 2,400 employees, Detroit Diesel Corporation is the leading manufacturer of on-highway heavy-duty diesel engines for the commercial truck market. The site has an automotive heritage stretching back 70 years. But with closure looming, what was to be done? The answer was to grab the bull by the horns and start revitalizing it. The redevelopment project was designed to convert the plant into a state-of-the-art manufacturing mall. The challenges were enormous. On the one hand, decades of environmental contamination and hazardous substances had to be removed. This meant disposing of asbestos, PCBs and lead-based paints, and cleaning up the soil and groundwater. On the other hand, the entire facility had to be converted to state-of-the-art production lines without interrupting production. The entire building envelope had to be upgraded, and the roof covering an area of approximately 90,000 square meters replaced, and even raised to accommodate new production lines. The rebirth was completed by mid-2008. Today, DDC is a production facility which meets the most stringent environmental standards. Over $275 million have been invested and more than 2,400 jobs maintained. This ensures that the most advanced diesel technology can continue to be developed and built at DDC. Furthermore, the DDC teams have established a state-of-the-art environmental management system in 3 years and optimized cooperation with their tenants in the interests of corporate citizenship. The core team of the Redford Renaissance, a team with visionary strategy, commitment, and responsibility.
So this concludes my story of Detroit Diesel, an engine manufacturing company who rose up from a sector that we don't tend to think of as particularly sustainable to make a tough decision that not only made business sense, it brought promise to a local community, and it made them leaders in corporate responsibility in their industry around the globe. Thank you.